Today on Rumblestrip.NET and 10-minute test drive, Nissan has invited us out for a local ride and drive. We are behind the wheel of a mid-cycle refresh 2016 Nissan Sentra. This one is the SL trim. So we're in Nissan's refreshed Sentra, the SL trim model. They've brought two trim levels out for us to drive today, the SE and the SL. Suspension-wise, there's no difference between the two. It's some equipment variations. We've spent most of our time in the SL, which is the top-level trim for this one. It's an interesting car in that it's in a very crowded segment that in some ways is going away, right? If you look at sales history especially in the last few years since we've come out of the the recession, people have gravitated towards crossovers and SUVs even more so than they were doing before the recession hit. You're seeing car sales, actual cars, not crossovers and SUVs. Those numbers are declining year over year, sort of. As people want crossovers for whatever reason they want crossovers. And in a market that's pretty crowded, I mean, you think you've got the new Civic that just came out, Corolla, which, is well into a few years old now. Focus, Cruze, and Dodge Dart, I guess, and, a couple others in there. There's a lot of choices there. And so this is an interesting car to drive. If for no other reason that of all of the models that people talk about, it seems, at least to us, that Nissan gets some of the least amount of talk and publicity. I mean, when you think about it, this segment, you think about, you think of Civic and Corolla and Focus and, maybe Cruze. Sentra doesn't seem to come up. It doesn't have that mind share. Again, that's in this area of the country. Now, if you're in the West Coast or maybe parts of the East Coast, that's very different. So how does this thing stand up? Well, it's a pretty interesting car. Nissan is really going after the value equation with this car and with this refresh. Typically Hyundai and Kia have been the players in the market that are going after the value segment, but Nissan is making a strong play. One of the points they made in their presentation here this afternoon was that in kind of a normal, their volume trim level, which is the SE, with the essentially a driver assist package, it's not the correct name for it, but it's, adaptive cruise and, rear cross traffic alert and adaptive and collision warning. Sorry, I'm just trying to drive and navigate at the same time here. That, this can all be had for without destination and delivery charges under 20 grand. Now, it's a little over 20 grand with when you throw that in, but that's MSRP. That's not to say that you can't go in and negotiate a price that's underneath that. And in this day and age, when, it's no big deal to have any new vehicle be 20 grand, and in this segment especially, we've seen some of the vehicles approaching, $27,000 and $28,000. If you're looking for value, if you're a first-time car buyer, or if you're a family on a pretty tight budget, but you need some room, that's 28 grand gets kind of up there. even 25 is starting to push it. Now for 25 grand, well, let's look at this. This is the top level trim, all in, every single option, without destination. It's 25.5, so you're talking, a little over, just a hair over 26, and that's with every single options box ticked. Again, value equation is good. So it's one thing to have good value, but value as far as pricing, but you want value as far as equipment, as far as materials, and this Sentra is solid. The materials in the interior seem to be of a good quality. Not too many hard plastics in here. Obviously, you're gonna have some at this price level. You can't avoid that. Center console, bits of the door, up top here, a little harder plastic, but you've got more of a soft rubbery texture on the dash. It's reasonably well grained. The infotainment system, we haven't played with it a lot, but you've got a decent size screen, not huge, but not too bad. You've got 12-volt socket here. You have USB in the center console. We have heated seats, no cooled, but heated, at least that. There's some other interior changes they've made. They have more sound deadening behind the dash and in the doors. They also have acoustic glass, and it really does provide a nice, quiet ride environment in here. Is it the quietest in the class? It's been a while since we've driven some of those cars in this segment, but it's very good. We'll be interested to see. We have a Civic coming in a few weeks. We'll be interested to test this against that here, even though we only have this for, we're driving this for an hour. We'll have the Civic for a week, but not too bad. They have a new steering wheel, which is inspired by the Z370Z. Feels good. Not too bad. Other, auto climate and pretty much everything you'd expect in this segment. Driving dynamics are good. They've gone and done some stiffening with the chassis with a few pieces to firm that up. I think that has definitely helped the ride quality. They've brought in the rear bushings that they used in the European models to the US. They've changed shocks and struts, and the ride quality is very good. We're here in early March of 2016, and we're starting to get that spring thaw, and potholes are popping up left and right. We're getting the frost heaves coming up, and this thing rides fairly well. Very controlled over some pretty decent sized potholes. It's, soaks them up. Not a lot of harshness transferred through the chassis and into the car. They've changed the steering column and adjusted the programming and the electronic steering, the electronic power steering. Feedback is nice. It's actually nicely weighted. It's not super light, but it's not overly heavy. It's striking a decent balance with the steering feel here. Now, it's not to say that this is, it's not a new 510, right? With that direct steering feel. But for a modern car with electronic power steering in this price range, it's not bad. If you didn't know it was electronic power steering, and 98% of the people who are going to buy this car won't know, nor will they care, it does a fine job. So the engine is a 1.8 liter four-cylinder with about 130 horsepower, and the power is adequate. It's fine. Again, this is a family car, commuter vehicle. It's a car to get you where you need to go. It feels, more than an appliance, thankfully, but it's not there's nothing performance about this, and that's fine. The transmission in this is a CVT, and this one, for the most part, isn't a consistently vexing transmission. It's fairly solid. Now, there are some points where we've driven this a second time on this loop, and when you come off a low RPM and you roll into the throttle, you're looking for a quote unquote downshift, and it sometimes is there, sometimes it's not. again, it's programming mostly for fuel economy reasons. And this, speaking of fuel economy, this does a good job, at least on the EPA numbers. Again, we're driving this for an hour, so it's not like we can give you good feedback on what fuel economy is. Sticker on this thing for fuel economy is 28 city, 29 city, 38 highway, 34 combined. You know, that's really good. And part of that is to do with the CVT, and Nissan has been doing CVTs for a while now. They do some of the best ones in the business. You know, we've driven one other Nissan CVT, and it was with a Juke. It wasn't one that we had, but you know, we drove one at one point, and it was okay. This is significantly better, given how some of the programming of the transmissions is in modern cars that actually have gears. It's difficult to tell that it's a CVT most of the time. If you get on it, you can hear the whine. Let's see if I can get some space here. And you can kind of hear the rubber bandiness, but it's like you're looking for gear, and it finally comes, and it's okay. Again, 99% of the people won't care. It does the job that it needs to do, and that's fine. With the short time that we have with this, we haven't had a chance to dig into the infotainment system and really see what's in there. However, it does have Siri hands-free, Siri eyes-free, not CarPlay or Android Auto, but you know, at least it has the Siri commands that you can operate off, you know, just pushing the button and using it off the steering wheel. You also have Sirius Travel Link. There's some apps available here. It looks like you can post to Facebook. You can do a Google search. There's probably some other things in here. We'll annotate all of that in. Best that we don't play with it as we're driving here. So again, there's only so much that you can tell from just a quick drive. You really need to spend time with a vehicle to understand it more and see how it stacks up in day-to-day driving and driving it on the highway and getting a better flavor for it. But for just a quick drive, and a lot of what we're doing here is probably what people experience when they take a new car for a test drive. In fact, we probably get a little more time with it than most people do when they take a car for a test drive. But overall, you know, it's a decent, looks like it's a decent vehicle, good value, and I think if you're shopping in this market, this is certainly a vehicle you should take for a drive. It's a mid-cycle refresh. I think they've done a pretty good job here of bringing it to a level that is, you know, on par with pretty much everything else in the segment. Again, we haven't, the new Civic is just out and we haven't driven that. Hyundai's got their new Elantra out, and we believe are going to be driving that shortly as well. But given what we've driven with the previous Kia and Hyundai, with Cruze, with Focus, you know, this stacks up fairly well.